your queries run through the circuits they roam. In a world where the data is the unsung hero. Welcome to the stage, the Eat Sleep Code Show. Syntax tight, our semicolons in a row. With the AI beats and the database flow. Grab your gear, it's compiling, let's go. We're breaking walls in our virtual chateau. With every line we write, our universe will grow. Welcome to the grid where the brave dare to code. Eat, sleep, code, let the systems overload. Sending signals in the neon afterglow.
Hello and welcome to Eat Sleep Code, the official Telerik podcast. I'm your host, Ed Charbonneau. I am with Progress Software, and we are joined by John Bristow from Octopus Deploy and our special guest today, Guy Royce from Redis. How are you doing, folks?
Yeah, doing all right.
Yes.
We should have talked in order that we were announced, shouldn't we have?
I mean, that would be professional, but that's not what the show's about.
No, God, no.
So if you don't know what the show's about, we are just friends that get on weekly and talk about the latest tech news, things that we enjoy doing with programming and software and AI and whatever. So very unstructured, but entertaining, I hope.
Yeah, I just got back from Europe, and that was quite eventful. I had a good 5 days overseas, and back now in Australia. So we've been incredibly busy on our side, doing lots of stuff. But lots of stuff happening around the world of AI and software at the moment.
That was for a private work event, right?
Yeah, we were doing our internal what's called revenue kickoff. So it's basically a side of the business that is, sales and marketing, etc. So I was there. R&D was there. A few other folks were there as well.
So was there any parties that you can't talk about?
There were plenty of parties I can't talk about because I didn't attend them. I'm old. I don't go to parties anymore. So
that makes two of us, though.
Yeah, the young kids that were there, they were like, we went to karaoke. The young kids that were there, they were like, we went to karaoke and I got a headache. I'm like, the next morning, I'm like, of course you do. Of course, that's fine. Like, who am I to judge? You're young. Go have fun. Go have a shot, whatever it is you guys do, So I'm going back to the hotel.
Meanwhile, the party experience for me is I went to a party and I can't function today. Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned, John, because we actually had our sales kickoff last week at Redis as well. And I was in Europe too. So for the same reasons. And it was a similar experience where there was a lot of parties and stuff like that. And people go out and stay out till 2 a.m. and then be there bright-eyed, bushy-tailed at 7 a.m. And
yeah,
I have long since lost the ability to do that.
Awesome.
We're quite the energetic crowd today.
Oh,
it's Eat Sleep Code, but an emphasis on the sleep, right? Is it nap time yet? Just my prune juice, yeah.
Yeah, there's more time for that too because the AI is coding for us. So
yeah.
It's just basically eat and sleep a lot. That's the show now.
Mm-hmm.
We do some coding though, a little bit. Guy, you were talking a little bit about some of the coding adventures that you recently had before the show started. We should probably start there.
Yeah. So I had this idea, and so you get an idea, and I want to play around a little bit, do an experiment with it. And does anyone do either of you or anyone in the audience remember Cucumber and Gherkin?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. BDD.
Yeah, the whole BDD thing, and
yep.
And the whole idea was that the requirements people could then write up all this Gherkin spec file, and then we as developers who use it as sort of runnable requirements. And so you could write code behind the lines that they would put in that were called step definitions, but the Gherkin itself was written in a language-oriented way. It was very for humans to read, but also in a way that you could automate it behind the scenes. And so it documented the requirements, but also then let you run code to confirm that the requirements were implemented.
I actually like the way Gherkin's written. It's a very good way to communicate things, even if you're not building software. Like if you're having a hard time getting a message through to somebody, like step down into some Gherkin style phrasing. And it's like, given X, if this happens, then I expect whatever to happen afterwards.
Well, and it's funny that you should say that, because that was actually the insight that I had as well, is this. These are actually terrible for test automation. Like this failed for two reasons, I think. One is that it turns out the people that were gathering the requirements, running them down, really didn't cover all the permutations they needed to in the Gherkin to validate it as thoroughly as you would need to. And the other is that as soon as you tried to automate them with code behind, then the text would have to line up with like a regex or something.
Yeah.
And then the developers are like, well, I don't want to write the same step division 7 times. Could you just use this exact phrasing when you do that? And then boom, Gherkin was programming. Right.
That's how it always goes.
But the format, the general given, I am on the login page, when I enter my username and I enter a valid password, then I am logged into the application, is valid, right? It's a valid way of communicating. And it occurred to me that LLMs can handle this just fine. Which, in hindsight is kind of obvious. And so I
thought you were going to say something about Markdown and SpecFlow and as the new currencies you have to play with.
So I did a little experiment, and I created a couple skills. I gave it an authoring skill for the LLM. I'm using Augment Code. Mm-hmm. So Augie could use the skill to help me author Gherkin files that describe the behavior of the application. And there was I'm doing air quotes here, a compile one, which would generate all the code for me. And then I had to be really brazen and actually put a git ignore file that had my source folder be ignored. So the idea is that the code is disposable, the code is generated, the spec file is the document of truth. And so I wrote up a simple little to-do app and had to generate it, and it worked. But then I started running into edges and things like that made it a little more problematic. And so I kind of think it's like, well, maybe the job of the programmer is in that specification, right? Because that's really what we've always been doing in our entire career, is defining in detail all the permutations of things that a piece of software needs to do. And we do that in code. And the further down the stack we've gone in the past, the more the machine specific that is then where, if you're writing assembly, and it's like, well, move this to the register and move this to the register and then call add. And if you're doing it in C, you're just saying A plus B equals C, you're just assigning variables and kind of stuff. And then as we move and up the stack, we care less about how the machine functions and more about just what it does. And I thought, well, like a Gherkin file is sort of a rarefied form of just the thing that it needs to do. And so that was the idea going into this. Well, I found that it's great for the first compilation, but then if you want to make your code truly disposable and just regenerate it again, you needed to provide specifications around how it interfaces on the edges. And so it's like, all I need specifications to say the user interface needs to look the same between compilations. And the database schema needs to match, because if I add a feature, the database schema, you can't radically decide how the database schema changes. And so it started breaking down in those areas.
It's the deterministic in the non-deterministic world that always catches you.
Right. So I'm trying to make it deterministic. And at a certain level, there's some things in there that I don't care are deterministic. Like, I don't care how it implements the JavaScript function that writes to the database, as long as it writes to the database consistently. I have determinism in some areas, but not all of them.
Yeah. At some point you care. Like, it makes me laugh because I was doing some experimenting this weekend myself, and I asked it to write a method to take a stream of bytes and write it to an MP3 file. And like, I kept beating my head over this thing not working. And I was like, why is this file always corrupt? And then finally I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go back and ask the AI why it's corrupt. And it's like, it comes back as like, oh, you wanted me to write the data to the file. It was like, it's always empty. Like so it created an empty MP3 file and just threw the bits away every time. I was like, what the hell was the point in that? I don't know, but you wouldn't want that to be one of your iterations. That there's certain
the way that I've always
generate.
the way that I've always described this is do as I mean, not what I say. And it's a way of it's describing your intention and getting to that end point. I think this is why context matters. I think this is why you also have to write down somewhere that the AI can understand what you've learned previously, both your positive and negative outcomes, and to learn from its behavior. And that's where, when I saw what Jeffrey Huntley was doing around Ralph Wiggum, for example, and then later on Claude Code made this an ability built into its tool set, I thought this is the right approach. You're keeping context windows small, you're learning from your mistakes, and then you're iterating over this many times. It's kind of like the brute force mechanism.
One of the things we're doing is we're taking some of these iterations and putting them in our MCP tool. So, for example, one of our MCPs will write Blazor code, and we have a CDN package, and the URL for CDN package has an @ symbol in it, which is the escape character in Blazor. So when you put that package in, you have to double @ to escape it back out and make that work. Well, when Copilot sees you do that, it assumes every @ symbol now requires a double @ symbol. So what we're running into is our MCP tool would run, and it's like, oh, you need to add this CDN, and then Copilot would see it, and then all of your code would get obliterated because it would be escaped everywhere. And we had to go back to our MCP tool and put in like some instructions. It's like, tell Copilot when you're done putting this link in, like this only applies to this link. Don't go haphazardly adding @ symbols to every instance that you find them in the code base.
You ever feel like you're building RoboCop? Remember in RoboCop,
Sure.
they filled him up with all these overly complicated rules, and and then he couldn't behave in any. Sometimes I feel like when I'm talking to an AI that I give it all these exceptions, and then I've created this sort of Frankenstein monster RoboCop-like thing,
My favorite was the failed RoboCops. There's a section of that movie that people don't remember. There's all the failed attempts that they had, and it's quite comical to see. And so, I'm very familiar with what you're describing.
How far down this rabbit hole did you get, Guy?
No, don't do it.
The RoboCop rabbit hole, or the
the program, the HAL programming that you're doing, the Gherkin rabbit hole.
I got it building a simple to-do app, and then I went down the path of saying, well, I need a stack markdown file describing the tech stack so that it uses the tools I want it to use. And then I had it generate a schema file to describe what the schema should be like for the database. And this is all an attempt to keep from having to preserve the code. And what I kind of landed on was I should just preserve the code. And because that code, its first pass of generating it, it's going to generate some code, and that code's going to encode, pun not intended, the schema in it and the user interface in it, and then it becomes where that information lives. And then as you're working with it, you can modify it, and then the code becomes that sort of system of record. And once that's there, then when you add new specifications, it just keeps the original style. It'll expand the database as appropriate in a way that would be backwards compatible. So that was one thing I learned. And that's about where I stopped. The thing that really was frustrating, and I was talking with Ed about this backstage before we got started, is that I work for Redis, so of course I'm using Redis as my data store, and it's stored everything as JSON, but it would put it in strings in Redis. But Redis has a JSON data type, and I wanted to use that, and so I told it, no, use the Redis JSON data type, and then it would go out and get a version of Redis that I thought was the current version, which is actually a couple of years old, and then it would look at code samples from various versions of Node Redis, and I was doing this all in JavaScript, TypeScript, and it got really confused. And so one of the things that has fallen out of this for me is that I need to build some sort of skill, or ask it to build a skill, and say, go look at all the documentation on Redis for the state of the art online, build a skill so that you know in the future how to do this correctly. So these are really the two takeaways I had. And I'm sure that Redis isn't the only product that has this problem where it's sort of gone out and just read, it's like when you go to Stack Overflow and you're searching to solve a problem. Like you're searching for something on Google and you find on Stack Overflow and you find some post from 10 years ago that has a solution from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And except I say that's 10 years old. I don't want to use that. Whereas the AI has just taken it and put it into its model, and it doesn't remember that it's 10 years old.
Did you experiment with different models? Did you have different outcomes? And do you like one model over another?
I was predominantly using Opus 4.5 for this. I figured I'm using augment code, and so I don't have any token limits, and Redis is paying for it, so I didn't care. I'm sorry, did I say that part out loud?
That's okay. We're not live or anything.
Yeah, I know, right? But yeah, well, I found that it could find the relationships and the inconsistencies in my Gherkin files even better than like Sonnet could, and so I just cranked it up to 11 and used Opus 4.5. One of the things I want to play around with it, I haven't had a chance to play with it yet, is Codex. I don't know if either of you have played with that yet, but
I have. Yep.
I just finally got access to it this week, and I haven't had a chance to install it yet. So
awesome.
But yeah.
What tools are you using for when interacting with agents? For example, are you using Cursor? Are you using chat interface?
I'm using Augie.
Okay.
And I'm just talking to it like I talk to ChatGPT or anything else.
Very nice.
So I've been primarily using Visual Studio Code, Sonnet 4, 5, and or is it 5.4? I can't remember the version number. Whatever it defaults to.
4.5.
4.5, and the built-in Copilot experience. But I like to put MCP servers in there to do things. So I'm a big fan of like Playwright, and Context 7's a good one. All of our MCP tools here at Progress. Aspire is a really cool one. I don't know if you've done any Aspire stuff, Guy, but it started in the .NET world, but it's not .NET anymore, and they have Redis middleware for it, providers or whatever they like to call them in there. So you can just drop a line of code in, and it spins up whatever you need for Redis, like caching and stuff like that. But you can go into your instance of Aspire and hit a button, and it connects an MCP server back into Visual Studio Code. So it has all the information about all the microservices that are running in your app. So if you have, for example, that Redis caching in there, you can just ask it like, what services are available? Oh, there's a Redis service. Are there any errors on that Redis service? And it'll come back and like give you the full readout if there are any errors, what they were. You can troubleshoot, and like, you just use natural language instead of like clicking through a dashboard or whatever to try to find errors in a log stream. Like those days are behind us, and I think that's like a nice feature that we're overlooking as an industry right now. It's like all the focus is on like, can I generate code? And there's all these really cool tools out there that can do like the debugging, the troubleshooting, and all of that stuff.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of a lot of those as well. So I also have some other questions regarding this. So Guy, when you're doing your iterations, do you track changes in Git? Are you using Git as a backend and then tracking? Like, does Git come into play during iterations of your code gen?
Specifically in the spec-driven development experiment that I did. In the context that now, I was specifically trying to see if I could basically treat spec files as the code, and then literally throw away the code between builds and just regenerate the code each time. And so Git really didn't play into it in that particular scenario.
And what about your size of your context window? Was that an issue during your experimentation?
I didn't get it large enough for it to really matter.
Okay.
and literally a to-do list application. It had a front end and back end. So it was Express on the back end, Svelte 5 on the front end, Redis as the data store, Docker Compose to run it all. And
do you think? Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Well, and that's pretty much it. There wasn't a ton that really, the context window really didn't get that large in terms of what it because it's a to-do list application, right?
Okay. Okay. I wasn't sure what you were building. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. I just wanted to build something small to prove out the idea and the flow and see how it could work. before I got to anything really significantly large.
And
Feels-
I was going to ask also if you were concerned at all about like you had mentioned earlier you were thinking about you have to write skills to update the context to keep up to date on the latest Redis innovations, for example. Do you think that's the right approach, or do you think AgentMD or something else might be more prudent? And what attempts have you made to provide that facility, and have you been successful?
I tried this in this experiment. I tried just putting that Redis information in the stack. I had a stack markdown file that. So I started out without skills, and I just did some prompts, and I'm like, well, let's get the skills in here and figure this out.
Yeah.
And so I had a skill that was, again, was for code generation and one for authoring. And in the code generation, I said, well, look for these files. The tech stack will be defined in stack.md, and then there'll be a schema folder that has all the schemas in it and that sort of stuff. And in that stack.markdown file, I gave it instructions saying, use this version of Redis. Here's a link that you can go and read about the current versions. Use that link when you generate the code, and it still kept doing the wrong things. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it didn't look at the link, or if it's like, yeah, there's a link, but I know this. I mean, in some way, it's such a junior dev, right? It's like, yeah, I know you told me to read the documentation, but I know what I'm doing.
So good question in chat. Fuel Snable's asking about running any of this stuff in on-prem, like any of the AI tools. I don't know if either one of you have tried running any of the AI tools like on a local machine somewhere or a local server to try to keep your data off the web while it's doing all of this work. I know the models can be pretty processor intensive. I think we take it for granted. The ones that we can download and run on our machines, they look great at first, but I don't think they're quite powerful enough. But I don't know if anybody's tried coding with local models or not.
Go ahead.
I haven't done local. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say I haven't done any coding with local models either, but I actually don't think that's quite his question.
No, is that not what it was?
I think it's more about running your Copilot tools in a container so that when they have access to your hard drive to change things, because they can run shell commands and stuff.
Oh, okay. I got the.
You can clarify if you like Fuel Snable, but we can answer both questions because they're both interesting. Right?
Guy is right.
Yeah. Yay! I love being right.
I'm not surprised.
But yeah, when it comes to running local models, I've heard people online say they've had good success, but I just haven't played with it yet for local models because they're going to be limited. They're not going to be as good.
I can't get my hands on a Mac Mini. They're all sold out.
You could try. Let's see.
What are you talking about? I'm running Clawbot on a Raspberry Pi. I'm sorry, Open.
I got to be one of the cool kids. That's the thing. No, we have obviously enterprise subscriptions to things like Gemini and Claude Code, etc. And they explicitly state that when utilizing their models, they're not factored into the data you share there is isolated. But that's obviously not the most fail-safe approach, but it is something that they do espouse.
I would like to try one of these out sometime and see how well it does. One of the Jetson Nano NVIDIA like AI on a chips. It's pretty much a small AI infrastructure, so you can just throw models on it and run it on device. I don't know how performant they are. I think it's kind of a cool thing for like robotics and stuff. I don't know how it does it inferencing.
Yeah,
how fast it is, but it'd be fun to try out.
I like toys.
Very nice.
Let's buy some.
They're like $250, $300, something like that.
It says it's $99.
Oh, that one's $99. Yeah, for
if you want the discount version, right?
Yeah. That's if you're buying in bulk. They're $129. It says for one. That's not bad.
Yeah. Fuel Snable actually left a comment there too that's kind of on point, which is to load up a local model, you need a fair bit of RAM, and that's got kind of expensive of late.
Is it though? Yeah, it is. Yeah, I've got the ability to run it on my desktop PC with my NVIDIA card, and I can run some models with decent efficiency, but it's when you start, like, you don't get a big context window for one. So like we were kind of talking about that earlier. The context window runs out pretty quick on the smaller models. And then a lot of them don't do certain things well, like they can't code well, or they don't do structured outputs well. They'll give you like text streams back and tell you a story, but as far as generating code, it's not as good. Like it'll like formatting things, like getting it back in the format you want is like a no-go. You could tell it 100 times to do it in a bunch of different ways, and it'll never get it right twice in a row. I'm sure all of you have run into this one before. You're like, give me back JSON, and it marked down, like comments it, like with the 3 backticks.
Yeah.
And like with the bigger models and the bigger context, you're like, yeah, give me JSON, don't include the markdown ticks. And usually that's enough to satisfy it. On the smaller models, it's like, okay, it'll do it the first time, and then the next 3 times you have the backticks again. You're like, oh. So
I was playing around with Node Llama CPP at a fairly low level. I was trying to get to work with LangGraph, and so I vibe coded an adapter so that it would work with LangGraph. And it's apparently got this feature where whenever a token comes back, so every single token that the model generates, at the model level, it validates, is this a valid character next in the sequence for JSON? And if it isn't, then it reruns the model. And so it's impossible for these models, for that particular Node Llama CPP, when it uses the model, to actually not generate correctly structured output. It might be not correctly structured. Actually, I think it even matches. It looks at this. There's like a schema or something that it looks at, like the Zod schema, or there's a JSON. I can't remember now, but there's a way where it makes it, if it generates something invalid, it'll just run through the model again, and until it generates something that actually is a valid token for the schema, which is kind of neat. But you could also see a scenario where that could loop it expensively.
I was just going to say that's why I reacted the way I did.
But Node Llama CPP is also using local models, so it's, you're not paying for those tokens in terms of.
Why is it so warm in my office today?
Yeah. It's like, well, I got to pay for the electricity. It's not like Bitcoin levels of electricity.
We just replace the furnaces in our homes with local models, and use it to heat the house. And
AI heats my home. Yeah.
This is actually like
it's a smart home.
a debate that I was having with coworkers when LED lights were first coming out.
Yeah.
And my friend was like, I'm replacing every light bulb in my house, every incandescent, with these LEDs, and I'm going to save a bundle. And I said, in the summertime. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, you're just offsetting some heat in the wintertime. Like your heater's going to run to make up for the lights you're not burning. He's like, that's not how it works. I was like, that's exactly how it works, my friend. Like watts are watts. I don't care where you're burning them. They make heat, and I mean, you're going to be heating the room with more heat. Sorry to break the news to you.
Well, at least the LEDs last longer. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it still works out financially.
Ed, it's about changing the colors. Come on.
Yeah. That wasn't a thing yet, by the way. It was just it was early days. It's like, I'm going to save all the energy.
So Fuel Snails got a whole litany of questions here that are coming up on chat, because we haven't addressed his initial question, which is running these things in containers.
Oh yeah, let's try it. Let's get on that. So we're running it on container to do what? Make sure that changes aren't made to our code
to
where we don't want
sandbox
them to be. Okay.
I know there's a mode with it where you can tell it to go and say, no, just accept all and don't ask me any questions. The
YOLO mode.
YOLO mode. Yeah, that's it. And so if you want to do YOLO mode, putting it inside of a container is a good idea. So it doesn't decide to do something like rm-rf, slash, right?
Isn't this what Git is for? Like what's it going to reach outside of Git and do?
Well, I mean, it can run any command from the command line. I've had it go out and look at repos outside of the workspace that I'm in.
Yeah, I guess
and
you
I've
can do
instructed
that.
it to do that and say, take a look at this repo. And so, and if you want to run a YOLO mode, and you're not going to validate every command that does anything against your, operating system, a container is a good idea.
Yeah.
But if you're not doing that, The only thing that putting in a container hedges against is you just going yes, 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 yes. Sort of the equivalent of clicking next on a
Like
wizard.
the Homer Simpson.
Yeah.
No, what, the drinking bird?
Yeah, the drinking bird.
I thought he was going to go for he pushes the button to release to the atmosphere.
Well, he's a nuclear technician working from home, and then he's like typing YES, and then he says, I tripled my productivity by just hitting Y, and then you got a drinking bird just basically to keep hitting Y after a while.
That's how I do development now.
Yeah.
There's all
The
these
drinking
Simpsons
bird
references
technique.
in development in AI development, aren't there? You got the Ralph
Yeah.
Wiggums loop, and
Yes, that's right.
So I've been using the coding assistants pretty like regularly to do some actual development. And one of the things I'm finding very useful is generating documentation.
Mhm.
And once you have an established like pattern, what you want that doc to look like. So I was just writing some onboarding like demos, right? And I was like, all right, here's demo 1. I could pretty much copy and paste demo 1 into demo 2 and write a couple more lines and like have this onboarding experience. So I created the first one, and I manually created a README file for it. And then when I copied it, I deleted the README file from the second one, made my edits, and I was like, all right, go back and generate a new README file for this one. And it generated them out. I had about 5 of these projects, and I'm like, all right, now cross-link all of the documentation. And it went in the markdown and like cross-linked it all, so it was all up to date. So now anytime I add or remove something from the demos and the docs, like I don't have to sit there and go, all right, was there a link I forgot to update? So somebody doesn't go in and like get linked off to something that doesn't exist anymore. It's easy to keep track of that kind of stuff now.
Yeah, the most frustrating thing for me in those scenarios is just maintaining context between iterations. Like if I go and do some work and then I go off and then come back, oftentimes if it's not in a chat, for example, a session, etc., you have to persist that somewhere. So I'll often ask to emit what you've learned or generate for me the outcome of this with appropriate context so I can reuse it later on.
Yeah, I was just having that conversation earlier today. I was going through an exercise with somebody, and at the end of it, I said, now, you said you had a workflow that you had to repeat like several times. And she was like, yeah. I was like, next time you do that, ask it to create a prompt at the end that repeats the workflow for next time. So you don't have to go in and like do the whole thing from scratch again. You just start with your input and get the output you want. She's like, that's awesome. I never thought of that. I was like, yeah. These things are really good at creating prompts. That's the fun part. The AI is great at prompting itself.
Well, much like me, they're good at talking to themselves. So
Yeah. They know what they like.
yeah.
And they're good at telling you what they like. So why not leverage that?
No, I've had it ask me, should I put this in agents.md or should I put this in claude.md? And my response to always is, well, that file is for your benefit. You think it would be useful if it was in there. And
yeah, it's that classic sort of, yeah, it's that classic sort of, but enough about me. Let's talk about you. What do you think about me sort of scenario?
Yeah.
The guy, you said you guys had a big release at Redis.
Yeah, well, we've had a couple. We had a release in November and a release just this month. So in November, we released Redis 8.4 and 8.6 just dropped this month. 8.4 has the feature that I think is kind of, there's been a lot of enhancements to streams and making some common Redis interactions more atomic. So like check the value of a key and then replace it and do that atomically, that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of event stream ceremony in Redis that has been turned into single commands. But the thing that I think is, there's two things that really stand out for me. One is in Redis 8.4, we introduced the ft.hybrid command. So we've got this whole Redis query engine, Redis search thing that lets you do vector search, and it lets you do hybrid search, or not hybrid, structured search. So give me, all the things in Redis that are between the state range or where it contains this tag or full text search, that kind of stuff. And you could combine that with, you could filter that before you handed it in for vector search. But that's not the same thing as a hybrid search. It's filtering it out first and then it's applying vectors on the filtered results. Whereas like the structured search had full text capabilities, and it would give you a score and kind of balance it out and give you a more meaningful approximation of what you might have actually intended. Hybrid search is a new command we added that makes it so that Redis does true hybrid search. So if you like do a full text search and you use an embedding to find something, it scores them together in a way that gives you a holistic result instead. So that's really a big deal. I'm working on a demo where I'm building a news aggregator that consumes RSS feeds and then summarizes them, stores them all in Redis, and then you can search for them and get summaries and stuff. And the hybrid search will be very useful for that because you get more meaningful results. So that's in 8.4. In 8.6, it's mostly just that we've got a lot of performance improvements, like really significant ones. Some of the things that we've improved performance on, and Redis is already like, to toot our own horn here, is already stupid.
Here we go.
Fast, right? Yeah. I mean, that's a thing, right? And it's like, but in some of our data structures, we've got a 5x increase in performance. And so and a lot of these things are already like 2 milliseconds, 1 millisecond, less than a millisecond. And so to get a 5x performance boost in these is a big deal. So those are some of the features that have come out recently that I've gotten kind of excited about. I should probably like do social media posts on them and stuff, but I just use them and they're fun. So
any cool stories, any customer use case stories that have come out recently that you'd like to share?
I don't pay attention to the customer. I actually don't have any good testimonials there. I saw some at our sales kickoff last week, but I can't talk about those.
Oh, okay. Yeah, fair
we
enough.
had some slides that had the word confidential on them, and then one slide that had the word confidential on all four corners, just to make sure we really knew it. I don't have any great examples off the top of my head for that. I know we have them. I just don't have any off the top.
What's the size of your group these days?
We got, I think, about 1,200 people in the company now. 1,100, 1,200 people, something like that. So we're getting up there.
Yeah,
it's not the small company I joined 6.5 years ago.
That's very true.
It's how that's a good thing, you know.
I know the feeling.
If it was smaller, that would be a problem, and you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
somebody asked in chat, Guy, what do people use Lua support for in Redis?
Scripting, honestly. So some of these commands I was talking about that were added that where you would have to do like that weren't atomic before, where you go in and like it's like, well, I want to read this key, and then if it's a certain value, then update it. Otherwise, don't. That kind of stuff. And normally that would require you to read the command and key and read it back, and then that would create a window where someone could get in and modify it, and then you go in and then make your change. And so some of these commands address this, but Lua scripting is often used for those sorts of things where I've got something that operates on multiple keys, and I want it to happen in the one thread that's at the heart of Redis, so that no one can get in there and mess with it. That's the most common use. The restriction around that with Lua and other commands that do things with multiple keys is that it can only happen on a single instance or on a single shard. So there's a little bit of caveat when you're doing that. But that's the primary thing people use Lua for, is to make things atomic that wouldn't be if you were doing it from your own code.
Are you guys, forgive me, I haven't looked at Redis for a bit. Are you guys integrating AI into Redis at all these days?
Well, I thank you for asking, John. We actually had a billboard in the Bay Area for a while. I don't know if it's still there or not. They said, "My boss wants you to know we're an AI company."
Okay. I like that. Yeah.
Which is, it's fantastic marketing. Props to our marketing team.
Mm-hmm.
So honestly, we built a fundamental capability into Redis really kind of before everyone else did, of adding vector search. It got added there as part of that search mechanism that we added many, many years ago. And no one else was really talking about it yet, but it was in there, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And so we actually were kind of ahead of the game there. And that has become the foundation for a lot of AI-powered things and stuff. The big thing that we're doing is we're providing we're trying to use Redis as the memory layer for AI, and the context layer. So you can store your context between turns, in Redis, and then since it's got a vector search, you can do you do that semantic searching to find relevant context to preload the window, that sort of stuff. And we actually have a product that we'll call it a product. I think it gets the product distinction. So one of my coworkers, Andrew, he built Redis agent memory server. And so what it does is you give it your conversation history, and you got like a classic chat bot where, call and response sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And between each turn, you hand that message history over to, or your most recent messages over to agent memory server. And then it will return to you the messages you actually need to send to the LLM. And it'll look at older messages and automatically compact the conversation so that you're not using up all your context. And it will automatically extract short-term and long-term memories and then find them for you and shove those in that context as well. So then you can very easily just make a call to agent memory server and get your results back. And I've used it in a couple different projects. It's actually pretty cool. I wrote a little, excuse me, a demo application called Podbot, which talks about podcasts. And in previous conversations, I talked about I want podcasts on history, or I want podcasts on amateur radio, because I'm that kind of nerd. And and then I was demoing it for a podcast last week 2 weeks ago with one of my coworkers, and all that was in its long-term memory. And so I started a new session, and it said, recommend some podcasts for me, and immediately gave me podcasts on history and amateur radio because it had got those long-term memories. But so we're building tooling to make that easier and using Redis as that store for that memory. So it's
nice.
We want to be the memory layer for the AI revolution.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Were you using like a standard protocol for the memory? I know there's like a schema or something that's out there. I haven't had a chance to dive very deep into it, but the whole agent memory thing is like a space to kind of dabble in. There's like a schema for how to hold the conversation and what the properties are, and like a standard for all that.
I don't know if we're doing that or not. I know that, so I interacted with it via REST API, and the JSON that I got back was in exactly the format that OpenAI wants. And so I'm able to just go in and say, here's my latest message, give me what I need to send to OpenAI, and it does. There's a Python layer in there as well that you can use if you're a client that will talk to it.
Yep.
There's also an MCP server for it, and it's all wrapped up in a Docker container. So you can just, I deployed it on Azure, and I would just use container services, and it worked. I did have to, it wants to talk to OpenAI or Anthropic directly. And so I did have to use Light LLM as a shim between it and Azure OpenAI, but that wasn't a big deal. It's been really cool. I've been able to build, get a lot of value out of it very quickly.
There was a good question in chat. Blue Spider 7 said, I'd really like a model that's trained on .NET UI projects that understand MVVM better. The current models seem to regurgitate design patterns from the web and Python. So for something like that, we actually have the Telerik MCPs. They work with our UI components, so they're not going to be generic MVVM. But if you were to be interested in something like that, we have .NET MAUI and we have WPF. So I would assume, since those are trained on our demos, that they are MVVM compliant or knowledgeable. So you're going to get more accurate MVVM style generation from them using our components. How it would act without our components, I doubt it would help any, but at least with our components, you're going to get the MVVM samples that they're trained with. So it should be pretty good at it. I'd kick the tires on them. Let us know if that helps with that type of scenario or not. Be interesting to know. I know the .NET folks are big on MVVM on like the XAML side of things, like MAUI and desktop programming and stuff like that. But the rest of us are off with web and Blazor and whatever else is hot in the JavaScript ecosystem.
I'm a fan of Svelte. I've been using Svelte for all my front ends.
Mm-hmm.
I refuse to learn React. I'm holding out.
React is pretty good. I haven't used it recently, but it's pretty easy to understand the basics of. I've seen Svelte as well. It's more of a leaner framework that you can kind of add into things and not adopt like a ton of baggage with it. So there's, I think Vue is the one that we missed the boat on. I think that would have been a really good transitional web framework for .NET devs especially. But for some reason, like everybody picked up Angular instead. And I was like, it's like you have to rewrite your whole app with Angular. You could have piecemealed it with Vue and had like way less overhead. But yeah, maybe it was a job security thing for some people. I don't know.
We did some demos in Vue a few years back. You know how you have like the mean stack for was it Mongo Express, Angular, and Node. And so I wanted to come up with like a 4-letter acronym for it, and we ended up with a Vue, Express, Redis, and Node, and it was the Vern stack. And then that opened up all sorts of fun jokes about it. You know,
Hey Vern.
Hey Vern, you know what I mean, Vern? You know what I mean?
You guys are really trying to age yourselves here.
That is apparent. Yeah.
Like, if you don't understand the jokes in the audience, then you were born after the 80s.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Or after the 1900s.
Oh, come on.
Behold my power to remember the 70s. Yeah.
Yes. Oh man. We were talking about your project a couple weeks back here, Guy. We were talking about your workshop that you were building. I hope I did it justice, but in case I didn't, do you want to give us another like overview of what that workshop is about?
Which
thought
workshop?
It was pretty cool.
The LineGraph.js one?
Yeah.
So I'm working on this right now, but I have submitted it to a few conferences, and hopefully they'll pick it up. The idea is to get people using LineGraph.js, and there's like there probably isn't much on there online if you're looking for web content, because it's just, I don't know even if my GitHub repo is public yet or not. You're talking about agents and arbiters. Okay, yeah, that one's fun. Yeah, I'm working on an AI news aggregator as well, but there's nothing public on that yet. I mean, I'm not hiding. I just haven't gotten around to making the repo public. And that'll be a workshop where one sits down and actually fills in the blanks in the application to build LineGraph, to build something that consumes RSS news and everything, and then lets you get a daily brief and chat with the news and everything. So Agents and Arbiters was this really fun demo that I wrote to try and, well, I had this idea spawned by two things. So there's Zork, which is another thing from the 70s.
Yes.
Zork was this original text adventure that I played on the Commodore 64 in the mid 80s, early 80s, from Infocom, and you could say things like "open mailbox," and it would open the mailbox, and then you could look in the mailbox, and it would tell you what was in it, and it was like it was that same call and response mechanism where it would describe the scene, I would say what I want to do, it would describe what happens in the new scene, but it was it's using 70s technologies, and it was very basic. It's some very basic grammar parsing. It was just looking up words in a table and then running functions. But I thought it would be really interesting to say, let's have an LLM do this instead. And so I built Zork using an LLM. But I had this other idea with it, and it comes from ancient Rome. And so if anyone's asking, have you thought about Rome? How many times? When was the last time you thought about the Roman Empire? Then you can say today. Because the Romans had this idea of this thing called the genius loci. And these were sort of spirits of different places. Then, they would make offerings to them and stuff like that. And sometimes they were for a family, and sometimes they were for like an intersection or a stream or just places. So I thought, wouldn't it be fun if every thing in the game had a spirit in it, like a ghost in the machine? And it could be basically an agent that would advocate for what it thinks should happen based on the player's action. And so I built this, and you're looking at a picture of it on screen right now. So the user enters that whatever they want to do, and a router looks at this and says, well, the player is at this location, so this pile of entities or things that could participate in whatever the user is asking for. The router says, selects which ones should participate. So if I say I attack the ogre with the sword, then the sword has something to say, and the ogre has something to say, and the player has something to say. But the rest of the things probably don't. And so it selects those, and then the request is handed to those, and they make suggestions on what should happen. And then an arbiter takes all those suggestions and then makes it a thing, makes it all cohesive, and then commit it to the world state, and the narrator spits out a new example. And so I built this thing that sort of had all these little spirits inside of it. And it works fairly well. I actually used Agent Memory Server for this as well, because it's preserved the conversation history. And I used a thing in LangGraph here that I think is worth noting, is that the committer isn't AI at all. Like everyone thinks all these nodes in LangGraph.js and in LangGraph General are like they do AI things, but they don't have to. They're just functions that are on a graph. And so the committer just takes what the arbiter gives it as structured output, takes it as structured input, and then updates Redis with the appropriate world state. And so it's just pure code. There's no LLM calls or anything like that in there. But yeah, it was an attempt to show sort of a multi-agent workflow. And so I ended up with something kind of fun. The game's playable. I need to add more types of objects. You can't actually attack the ogre with the knife because there aren't the sword, because there aren't NPCs and there aren't items. There's just places and fixtures and exits. And so you can move around the world and explore it, but you can't really interact with anything much. You can interact with the fixtures a little bit. But yeah, it was a really fun project. I'm using really low-level models. I'm using like GPT-4 Mini is the model behind this, and it still generates really compelling content. You could probably use a local model to run it without too much problem, honestly.
Yeah, I find 4.0 Mini is like really good.
Yep.
Yeah, that's my go-to for most stuff. I'm working on some samples right now for a course on Dome Train, and I don't have the nice fan out, fan in workflow that you've got, but I have some similar concepts, and one of them is creating podcasts. So you give a query to the AI, and it goes out to GitHub and pulls information in and consolidates it into a podcast, and then kicks off a background task that can generate and save the podcast to a disk. So you could pull it up in the UI and play it. And it's interesting. You mentioned like the edges and the what are they called? They're edges and executors. Is that what they call them? I don't know what they're called in LangGraph.
I mean, in graph theory in general, it's vertices and edges, but everyone just tends to call them nodes and edges, or nodes and connections.
The lines and the boxes.
It's the circles and the lines, yeah.
Yes.
There's a specific one in Microsoft Agent Framework for committing work, like you did with the committer. And you can, like you said, just run a function in line inside the workflow, or you could have tool calls. There's so many choices that I think the hard part of all this, like where the developer really has to step in, is trying to figure out which workflow and processes belong to what, and what should they be agents, should they be functions, should they be function calls, tool calling, MCPs? You know what I mean? There's so many options there.
Well, in a lot of cases, you don't even need really like a proper tool React loop thing going on here, because like in this example here, the West of House area, there's a thing in the game that has information about West of House. And so it just goes and reads the information. And so there's like a IO happening, and, these could go look stuff up before they invoke the LLM, which is not really a tool call, because you're always it's almost like it's more raggy in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I think tools sometimes get a little overused in this model, because you don't necessarily, because it's just code. I was like, well, I can just go make my database call to do the thing I want to do, and then hand that to the LLM. and I don't need to build some tool that knows how to talk to the database unless I want to conditionally use that tool and let the LLM decide whether it wants to or not.
Yeah.
A lot of times you don't, especially in workflows, you don't really need that sort of, you don't always need that kind of decision making capabilities.
Yeah, I just double checked real quick. An agent framework, there's a specific name. It's an executor is one of the nodes that's not necessarily AI, but performs a very specific functional task.
In JavaScript, these are all just functions.
Okay.
Building a graph, you call graph.addNode, give it a label, just a string for a name, and then you pass it a function, either inline or from somewhere else in the code. There's really not much to them. One interesting thing that I discovered in building this was I learned in more detail how the message annotation works in LangGraph. So there's this messaging annotation which builds up your message history over time. But I learned how that worked and how it's not suitable for this kind of flow. And so I actually had to build custom annotations to store the state.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so there's this idea of a multi-channel state. And basically, the messages annotation is just a channel called messages, and then it's an array which contains the history of all the messages. And that array grows over time. I was able to instead create things like the multiple channels. One's for like what the narrator generated. One's for the arbiter's decisions. One's for the recommendations for the entity agents. And so they could go in and update their individual state, and then without having to try and walk back and find parts of the message history. Because the guys here in the middle, I can't point to them because I don't have a pointer, but the player, West of House, mailbox, leaflet, those are all running in parallel. So you don't know when they're going to finish. And their message, if you're using a message annotation, you wouldn't know where to look in the message history. And so then you'd have to like mark it and then search it and stuff. But if you just create channels for these things, then they can just put their data in the channel and be done with it. And that was a lot cleaner. And sort of context engineering just falls out of that process, because each of these nodes are not taking that long context and sending it in again. You're creating a custom curated bespoke context just for that node. And so you can really focus it on the task you wanted to do. I think there's an example of the further down, and there's another picture of the multi-agent context in here. Is there? Yeah, there it is. So yeah, so the different nodes would use different aspects of that context. So I had like the user command went in. The game state, that was really interesting because the game state isn't even data. It's actually just an object that allows you to read Redis to get the game information, to modify the game state. And so I put into the context, or into this annotation, code that I could execute as opposed to just data. So, and I was lucky to find icons for both the player and the house and the mailbox and the leaflet. So
this is all really cool stuff. Do you have any workshops where you're giving this talk coming up?
I have talks with it. I haven't done a workshop around it. I did it at CodeMash back in January. Was well received. I talk a little bit about how Zork used to work, actually, which was kind of fun. And, I did it last week in Madrid, just opportunistically. And so I've only given the talk twice, but I'll be giving it at some other events. NDC Toronto picked it up. I know there's others, but that's the only one that's coming to mind right now. But yeah. Download it's all out there on GitHub. Go download it, play with it, kick the tires on it, spin it up. If you have an Azure account, you can do AZD up, and it just works.
Yep.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I shared the link in our chat rooms for those on YouTube and Twitch watching. You can grab the link there. It's pretty easy to find too. It's just Guy Royce with an S on GitHub. Awesome stuff, man. I'd love to have some time to play with this. I probably should make my daughter, who's learning to code, look at it.
One interesting thing I did is that I rebuild that graph for LangGraph.js each cycle through the process, because those entity agents in the middle vary depending on where you're at in the game. So if you're in a place where the mailbox isn't, then the mailbox shouldn't even be considered. So I actually rebuild this graph dynamically, each
Oh,
time.
that's cool.
Mm.
Cool. Well, thanks for bringing that up. I thought you were talking about the AI news aggregator, which is a workshop I'm putting together, but it's not ready. It's not ready yet. It's still cooking.
John, you got anything happening at Octopus Deploy you want to chat about?
Yeah. We've recently updated our MCP. We've added some write operations now, which is great, and we've been working on a bunch of innovations. Recently, we have the recovery agent and a bunch of other agents that we're building out right now for Octopus. A lot of this is up on our roadmap. Go to roadmap.octopus.com for all the details. You can tell I've been telling this story for a bit. But it's really exciting stuff. I'm part of what's called the AI Foundations group internally at Octopus, and we talk daily about everything we're doing. And it's both for internal but also external consumption. So we're building out skills, and we're building out MCP, and we're building out all kinds of things right now. So definitely a lot of we're taking a very thoughtful approach to this, obviously, but we're integrating where we think is most appropriate. So it's exciting stuff, and we're not doing choose your own adventure with deployments like Guy is, but no, it's we're helping where we feel is most appropriate, I think. So when a deployment fails, for example, which they do, we have a little agent that will help diagnose the problem, and it turns out to be pretty powerful.
Very cool. Yeah, we had a big release here at Progress this week, and we've got new stuff for all the AI things, whether it's AI-powered workflows for document processing. Like this one of the overlooked, I think, parts of our business is people knows for UI components. We've had document processing libraries for almost as long as we've had UI components. So if you're doing like work with Office docs, spreadsheets, that type of stuff, you could always generate that type of thing and read it with our libraries. But now that AI is here, we've got hooks into those document processing libraries for AI. So I think that really steps up the value of those document processing libraries, because you can now analyze with AI documents just with the hooks alone, and do like little mini RAG implementations, and ask questions on your data. We're adding structured data into that now with things like Excel sheets and stuff, where you can work with the data using AI in there. So there's some cool stuff that we just added with that. We improved like all of our MCPs, and then we have smart AI components. So they're components that have an AI feature to them. One of them is the Smart Paste, and this is for pretty much every platform. This is the Angular one. We've got it for React and Blazor as well. But you can basically have a bunch of unstructured data on your clipboard and paste it into a form, and it's going to figure out what fields that data belonged in. And it's not going to work on a live show because it's a live show. Why would it work on a live show? Let's try the Blazor version. You can allow the clipboard. And
Hey.
no, it made them blue. I don't think. I didn't put it on my clipboard. It's a user error.
Well, there's your problem.
I forgot to copy
Hey,
and
there you go.
paste. There we go. That proves it actually did something, and it wasn't hand waving, because I managed to user error it. So that's a pretty cool feature. Saves people from having to like fill out entire forms. Like we added that. The new prompt box is really cool. Like it's switching between. Is this the one I'm thinking of? Oh, okay. This is just the raw like text input box. There's another one that we have that toggles between like semantic search and some other features. I think that might be the this one here, the smart box for the grid. Yeah, this one will change context to an AI assistant versus like a semantic search for data. So it's got like a nice toggle in there, so you can like command different things on the page using natural language, or you can sort it with semantic search. There's a whole bunch of stuff in here we just released So make sure you jump on and check that out if you're doing any UI work. We got lots and lots of stuff we release probably on a monthly basis now. We just are full steam ahead with updates. But that's all I've got, guys, or Guy and John.
There we go.
Oh, pun on my name. I see how it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's all for the show today, folks. Make sure you join us on Discord. I'll throw that in a nice banner where you can copy the link down. We have a Discord channel here at Progress called Progress Labs, and if you join our Discord, you'll find me and the other Progress folks in our community in there chatting about this show and topics and many other things that we decide to talk about during the week. It's not all Progress related content. It's just AI projects we're working on, products we're involved with, hobbies we have, friends that we invite to come. Hint, hint.
I'm on there.
Guy is on there. John's been on there. Come join us in Discord and see what we're chatting about. And we'll be here next week. Or John and I will be. Same time, same bat channel. Thanks for joining us, folks, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.